On February the 22nd, 2026, Mexican Special Forces killed El Mencho, the most powerful cartel leader in the Western Hemisphere. Within hours, his empire struck back with 252 roadblocks across 20 states, 25 National Guard dead, highways ablaze, and flights grounded. The fires were only a warning shot. The real crisis is the succession war now erupting inside a $50 billion cartel, with no heir and 4 warlords ready to seize the throne. Welcome to tomorrow's War Fronts, where we examine why and how military events are playing out on the world stage. Be sure to give us a follow and let us know which war fronts are affecting you. Now, let's keep going. At 6:15 a.m. on February the 22nd, 2026, Mexican Army Special Forces received a final intelligence update from the newly formed Joint Interagency Task Force Counter-Cartel. The target was a fortified compound on the outskirts of Tapalpa, Jalisco. 2 Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from Guadalajara, shadowing a convoy of armored Humvees. By 7 a.m., a 16-man assault team was inserted on a ridge above the Tapalpa Country Club. Within minutes, automatic fire erupted as CJNG guards tried to repel the advance. The firefight lasted less than half an hour. 8 cartel combatants were killed, 4 immediately, including 2 high-ranking lieutenants and 4 more during air evacuation. Among them Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho. The raid was guided by real-time signals intelligence feeds and satellite imagery, supplied in part by US analysts. A GPS tracker hidden on a vehicle linked to El Mencho's inner circle allowed the assault to unfold with surgical precision. No Mexican servicemen died in the operation. 2 suffered minor injuries from shrapnel. The team secured 12 kilograms of high-grade methamphetamine, a cache of cash worth 150 million pesos, and a trove of encrypted communication devices. Retaliation was immediate and nationwide. Within hours, CJNG operatives erected 252 roadblocks across 20 states, an unprecedented show of force. Highways burned from Jalisco to Veracruz. 25 National Guard members were killed in ambushes at blocked routes. 6 commercial flights out of Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta were cancelled as airports shut down under threat. The US State Department Crisis Hotline was overwhelmed by calls from stranded travelers. For the Mexican government, the cost of removing a kingpin was measured not just in casualties, but in the sudden paralysis of national infrastructure. The message from CJNG was unmistakable. The death of their leader would not bring peace. CJNG emerged in 2009 from the ashes of the Mencho cartel, not as a loose band of gunmen, but as a carefully structured organization. Its leadership, drawing lessons from past failures, introduced a franchise model that changed the rules of cartel expansion. Local cells received autonomy in exchange for a set share of profits, usually 5 to 10%, allowing CJNG to spread it with unprecedented speed. Within a decade, the cartel established a presence in all 32 Mexican states and every US state, a reach confirmed by DEA and US Treasury Department data. Discipline was enforced through encrypted communications and strike teams tasked with ensuring tribute payments. Internal documents seized in Guadalajara detail a system where autonomy came with the threat of swift, often lethal retribution. This structure insulated the leadership, making direct targeting by authorities far more difficult. CJNG's firepower evolved alongside its reach. In 2015, cartel fighters used a rocket-propelled grenade to down a Mexican Army Black Hawk helicopter, the first time a cartel deployed such weaponry against the state. By 2020, the group escalated to car bombs and coordinated IED attacks in an assassination attempt on a senior official, signaling a new level of paramilitary capability. By 2025, its armed wings numbered up to 7,000 fighters, equipped with armored vehicles, drones, and encrypted radios. Control of the port of Manzanillo secured CJNG's dominance in methamphetamine and fentanyl trafficking. DEA seizures and US Treasury Department sanctions reveal a network of shell companies and offshore trusts. Academic estimates put the cartel's hidden wealth at $50 billion, rivaling global corporations. No one in the Oseguera family stands ready to claim the throne. Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, known as El Menchito, is locked inside a high-security US penitentiary, serving a life sentence for trafficking methamphetamine and fentanyl. Federal custody records confirm he has no prospect for release or communication with the outside world. His mother, Maria Isabel Lopez, was arrested in Veracruz in 2022 and remains behind bars on charges of money laundering and organized crime. Antonio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho's older brother, is in a California federal prison convicted of heroin trafficking. The bloodline that once anchored CJNG's command is now scattered and silenced, unable to rally the cartel's sprawling network. Attention turns to Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, known as L03, who leads the cartel's elite paramilitary wing. Born in California, he holds U.S. citizenship, a fact that complicates any rise to power. With an American passport, L03 faces the threat of immediate extradition if he draws too much attention. Yet his dual status also makes him a legal anomaly, difficult for both Mexican and US authorities to target without sparking a diplomatic standoff. Analysts point to another problem. L03 commands respect among the cartel's shock troops but lacks the deep personal ties to the regional bosses who control the cartel's revenue streams. His legitimacy is questioned by those who see him as an outsider, a paramilitary chief rather than a true heir to the empire. With no family member free and able to command nationwide loyalty, CJNG's leadership sits vacant. The organization's franchise structure, once a shield against law enforcement, now becomes a source of instability as regional commanders weigh their options. The vacuum at the top opens the door to a contest between ambitious warlords, each with their own private armies and cash flows. The stakes are no longer just about territory or profit, they are about survival, as the cartel's future hangs in the balance. Ricardo Ruiz Velasco, El Doble R, runs CJNG's logistics from Guadalajara, controlling the city's drug routes and extortion rackets. His network, estimated at over 1,500 armed operatives, is organized into cells equipped with assault rifles, armored vehicles, and encrypted radios. Despite a multi-million-dollar reward for his capture, El Doble R's hold on Guadalajara's criminal economy remains intact. Audius Flores Silva, known as El Jardinero, dominates the Pacific corridor from Nayarit to Michoacan. US Treasury sanctions and a $5 million bounty have not curbed his reach. His revenue comes from drug corridors, mining extortion, and taxing businesses. Flores Silva commands around 300 fighters, skilled in rural ambushes using explosives and armed drones. Heraclio Guerrero Martinez, known as Tio Laco, controls Veracruz's fuel theft operations, siphoning hundreds of millions of dollars from pipelines and laundering profits through shell companies. Veracruz's main harbor serves as his smuggling hub. With 150 mobile enforcers and a $2 million bounty on his head, Tio Laco's grip on the Gulf Coast's illicit flows remains unbroken. Each warlord's assets fuel rivalries that threaten to fracture CJNG's empire. Cartel kingpins rarely fall without consequence. Each takedown sparks the Hydra Effect. One cartel splits into two, sometimes more. West Point analysts found that every major decapitation since 2006 has led to a new group emerging in the same territory. Calderon's campaign saw Mexico's criminal landscape explode from 6 dominant cartels to over 60 deaths in just 6 years. The International Crisis Group mapped this fragmentation, showing uncontested cartel territory shrinking from 47% in 2010 to 29% by 2020. CJNG tried to resist this fate with a franchise model and the Trident Council, with 3 leaders managing security, finance, and logistics. Now those same structures threaten to fracture. Guadalajara faces a challenge from Nueva Plaza, Michoacan's corridors draw Carteles Unidos and La Familia Michoacana, and Guanajuato's fuel routes are battlegrounds for Santa Rosa de Lima. Veracruz's pipelines, once tightly held, are exposed. Beyond Mexico, Andean traffickers in Colombia and Ecuador have begun rerouting shipments, echoing Sinaloa's earlier splintering. The odds now tilt toward violent fragmentation, not order. On February 22, 2025, the US Department of Justice formally designated CJNG as a foreign terrorist organization. This label handed federal agents new powers, asset freezes, expanded extradition, and the authority to target any financial institution that moves cartel-linked funds. The Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control now uses rapid freeze protocols to lock down bank accounts in hours, while DEA enforcement teams can subpoena foreign banks and trigger secondary sanctions against companies moving fentanyl precursors. Yet these legal tools face a logistical maze at Mexico's Pacific ports. Manzanillo, the country's busiest container terminal, handles more than 3.6 million 20-foot equivalent units each year. CJNG's grip on port operations enables dual loading, hiding precursor chemicals among legitimate cargo, then rerouting containers to evade inspection. Since the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation, spikes in flagged container movements have outpaced the capacity of customs agents and non-intrusive inspection systems. For US and Mexican authorities, every missed container risks another fentanyl shipment crossing the border. The stakes reach beyond enforcement. Security planners for the 2026 FIFA World Cup in Guadalajara have quietly added cartel-linked supply chain disruptions and targeted attacks to their risk indicator lists. The world's attention will soon focus on a city where the battle for control of ports, routes, and reputations remains unresolved. Today, CJNG's $50 billion war machine fractures, but the flow of fentanyl and violence endures across all 32 Mexican states and every US state. Power shifts, but the underlying networks adapt. The question is not who takes the throne, but whether the Hydra can ever truly be slain. Subscribe to Tomorrow's War Fronts for more breakdowns. Until next time.